evening, and welcome to day 4 of Refreshers. We've got Brian Costello on this evening. He looks about as excited as I am to have him on, actually. Yeah.
That's all right, I'll get the energy up, mate. That's what I'll do. I'll start bouncing up and down a wee bit.
It's absolutely brilliant. You've got a superhero behind you as well. I just noticed that. Spider-Man on the wall.
This is the whole superhero wall.
Oh.
See, this is like, there's a whole wall of... I class Marty McFly as a superhero, hence the reason for Back to the Future.
I've got to say, Spider-Man's quite impressive.
Yeah, he is. And everybody goes, oh, where did you get your Spider-Man? And actually, I've just noticed that he's slipped.
Oh.
He's had a slip. Look, he's got less space at the bottom than he does at the top. So I'll have to fix Spider-Man.
Thankfully, Brian, this evening, I will be disappearing off the screen and you'll be taking the session.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's going to be banter back and forth. So it's a serious session this evening because we're going to be discussing the topic of burnout. More specifically, Brian's got a session called Fried, which is recognising and changing burnout. Okay, so a really sort of top topic at the moment, hot topic if you like. Brian is the head of a company called Headstrong Minds, who has been doing work with the college over the last, year or two now?
Yeah, year and a half, something like that, yep.
And I'll leave Brian, you want to give a quick explanation of the business and how it's going and where you're based and things?
So, if you want as well, so we do everything from therapy to workshops to classrooms. Some of you may, and it depends on how long you've been in the college, you may have met my colleague Mark, who did some online sessions when we're in the midst of lockdown and all those things. So basically what we do is we talk to people about their mental health. And more specifically, what we try to do is have positive conversations around mental health, because a lot of the mental health conversations can be quite scary. So whether you're in, I'm in my office in Glasgow just now, whether you're in here just speaking to me one-on-one or whether we're speaking to 500 people, the message is always about hope, that we can fix everything. Anything can be sorted out. You just need to understand how it works first, and then you can sort it. And many people don't understand the mind. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to look specifically at burnout and how does that work in the head? How do we end up in it? And this is just one tiny little bit of mental health, but as you said, a really important one. I think one that a lot of students and probably the staff are feeling at the moment as well.
Absolutely, yeah. So, okay, I'm going to turn off the screen in a wee second. Brian's slides are going to come up. So roughly going to be 40 minutes for this session this evening. So get your teas ready, get yourselves excited because Brian is about to deliver this session right now. Okay, so if you just bring your slides up, Brian,
I'll sit like this, and if it's all right, I'll just nip them up and down again just as we go, and you'll see them pop up and up and every so often.
I'll be in the background, and off you go.
Perfect. That's not creepy at all. He'll just be in the background. Can't see him, can't hear him. We just know he's there. Excellent. So hello to you, and I hope you're enjoying Refreshers Week. It's such a clever idea. I loved it when Jason told me about it. It's such, you have Freshers Week. That's a thing. Well, let's have Refreshers Week, and also perfect timing just coming off the back of Christmas and New Year and all of those different things. I hope you're well. I don't know you personally, obviously. I don't know what course you're studying. I don't know what it is that you're doing in the college. But I know that for everybody at the moment, no matter what age you are, no matter when you've gone to college, you may be a mature student, you may be straight out of school. I don't know exactly where you are. But the mindset is hugely important, and mental health is something that's massively important. So it's always exciting for me to come on and speak about these things, because I'm hoping that over the course of the next, 45 minutes, and I'll talk for maybe about half an hour or so, and then I think Jason's going to come back in and going to speak, we'll ask a couple of questions and we'll develop on some of the ideas, is that it is, as I said at the beginning, it's all about understanding. It's all about being able to understand what's going on. For many of us, the reason that we don't cope with our mental health, the reason why we have mental health problems, is because simply we've never been taught how our mind works. So we think that mental health happens to us. We feel as if something's happening on the outside that's kind of causing us to feel the way that we feel, when actually the case is that it's all happening in here. And there's some simple things that we can do to make massive changes. But as you'll hear me say a few times through this, you have to commit to these things. I can't fix them for you. I can only explain how they work. And then once you understand how they work, then I can hand it over to you. So let me just get one very simple understanding out of the way before we get into the specifics of burnout. The way that we all work is that we all work on patterns. So basically what your mind wants to do from the moment you've been born right through your life, what your mind wants to do is it wants to make things automatic. So it wants to just have things that it understands so well, it knows exactly how they run, so that what it can do is it can just not think about that thing and it can just do it. So for example, if I was to ask you to go and make yourself a cup of tea or make yourself a cup of coffee, your brain doesn't really engage in that activity. You don't really think about it. The only thing you might think about is, well, I've already had 6 cups of coffee today, so is this a sensible thing for me to be doing? If you drive, for instance, remember when you first learned to drive, that learning to drive was complicated, and even for some of you, I've got to admit, you might be young enough that didn't last for very long, but there's lots of pedals, there's lots of levers, there's lots of other cars, there's lots of things going on, and you're having to think about all of that. But now, if you've been driving for a little while, this might not be true for everyone, but what happens is that you're now at a stage where basically what's happened is that you're somewhere where you just get into the car, you're eating your bacon roll while putting your makeup on, while driving the car, while adjusting the radio, while trying to choose something on your phone. You shouldn't be doing any of those things, by the way, but you get my drift, and we can do it automatically. We don't really have to think about it. Now, the thing about that is what I call this, just in case I mention this later, is I call this your normal. So we all have banks and banks of normal inside our head. What's normal to you, by the way, might not be normal to me, but vice versa. But we have these normals, these patterns that we run, these automatic things that just happen again and again and again and again. And the issue with that is that when these things happen, as our mind has to not think about them, it doesn't have to think about them. So it puts them into the back, and this is the way that life should run. Now, this is a really fundamental mental health understanding, because, to be honest, for many people, their mental health becomes part of their normal. So for some people, it becomes normal to be anxious, or normal to be depressed, or normal to be sad, or normal to be angry. People go, oh, you get such a terrible temper, but that's just you, isn't it? As if that's okay. Or they might say that about themselves, oh, that's just my temper. I can't do anything about that, which is actually not true at all. You absolutely can, but we accept it as part of this normal. Now, here's why this is important, because since March 2020, we've had no normal, and normal keeps on changing. So there's been no kind of automatic pattern. For brief periods of time, we get this feeling that we're kind of getting back to a normal, but we're all old enough to be able to remember what normal was before all this shenanigans happened and all this pandemic happened. So what happens is that our brain is always having to think, and it's switched on all the time. So your college experience potentially isn't what we would class as a normal college experience. Now, if you're in second year just now, this is probably normal to you now. In fact, this probably feels great, the fact that you can actually attend college some days. But I'm sure there's still bits of it that are online, and there's maybe assessments that don't happen, or you've got this constant worry about, well, not maybe so much anymore. There's definitely, as far as I can see, light at the end of the tunnel. But even before Christmas, when it was, right, okay, we're all back on online lessons, I do a lot of work in schools, and there was a whole heap of stuff about, are the schools going to go back? Are there going to be school pupils back in? And all of this. And what this means is that our head hasn't been able to get a normal. So what that has resulted in is us being burnt out. Because basically what happens is our brain is trying to get this pattern, can't get it. One day it's masks, the next thing it's booster vaccinations. We were vaccinated, and then all of a sudden, no, you're not. You need to go back and get another one. And then it's, okay, you can go here, but you can't go here. And then all of a sudden it's like 3 households again, and you have to be here with the 3 households, and you have to be there with this, and all these different things that are changing all the time, and your brain is just going, hang on a minute, I'm still trying to do college work. Or even if you're in first year, maybe if you're young enough, you were at school, so you're trying to do your exams, and you're doing interviews for stuff online, and jobs aren't normal, and our brain has basically got to a stage where it's like, I am fried. I am done. Now, there's a whole variety of reasons. I just gave you one type of burnout there, but actually there's 3 different types of burnout that I want to take you through tonight. And I think you'll recognize yourself in at least one of them. Some people recognize themselves in 2 of them. And I have had the occasional person that says, I've experienced all of them over the course of the last couple of years and even just now. But all I wanted to get you to in this first, that first sort of 10 minutes or so, I don't even know how long I've been speaking for, I've absolutely no idea. But however long that was that I was speaking for, I need you to understand that being burnt out is a normal response to having to think all the time. And we can do stuff about it. And what I want to show you is what we can do about it. Now, let me see if I can get technology to work here. It was working when Jason and I gave a little try at it. Let's see if, hang on a second. Nah, it's not wanting to pop up with my window, so it's okay. I'm just going to talk to you about it. It's saying Chrome does not have permission to share your screen. Please follow these steps, right? Do you know, I know you're live on, right? But I think that I can make this work right in the background here, potentially. No, I can't. So I'm just going to come back to you because the steps are far too complicated. And I am absolutely positive that I've done everything that I needed to do. So we tested it before we even came on and it all worked. I'm just going to try one more time just in case. No, it's not there. Right. I'm just going to have to talk you through these. But I hope that what happens is that this will make sense. And what I'll do is I'll send these slides on to Jason when we have finished, and I'll send them on as a PDF. And if you're interested, you can get in touch with Jason and he can share them. Okay, so what is our type of burnout number 1, if you like? I'm frustrated, by the way. If you see my eyes going everywhere, it's probably because I'm still trying to change the screen and share the screen. And I'm like, why won't you work? God damn you. But no, it's not going to function. Anyway, so the first type of burnout is what we call burnout by overwhelm. Now, burnout by overwhelm is a really interesting thing. And how it happens is that there's just too much stuff. So it's pretty much just all about taking so much on that you can't handle it. Your brain, you might not know this, but you ever heard the phrase working memory before? Maybe? Yeah, maybe not. By the way, I'm not asking you to tell me whether you have or whether you've not, but you may or may not have. So working memory is what we use to just get through our day. And it's the things that we use. If I was to say to you just now, can you nip to the shop for me and get me blue tack, a screwdriver, and an empty bottle? Then what happens is that you have to store that somewhere inside your head so that when you run to the shop, you can remember. It's just a fun night out to get blue tack, a screwdriver, and an empty bottle. That's just how I roll. And as you go to the shop, if you don't write that down, it takes up space in your working memory. So your working memory is really important. If you're somebody who, you have a piece of homework, for instance, to have to remember, or when you're trying to process something. So if I'm teaching you something, so even just now, your working memory is being used to store pieces of information before it goes into your long-term memory, where it will be stored for you to access it some point in the future, whenever it is that you may need it. So what happens, therefore, with your working memory is that it only has a certain amount of space. So it's like having like boxes, and once the boxes are full, your working memory goes, I'm done. I'm full. I can't fit anything else in. Have you ever had, right? I'm sure you have, right? But have you ever had the experience where you've been trying to hold a list of things in your head, but you're actually quite maybe anxious and stressed about it, because what you're doing is you're having to run that list in your head all the time. And the reason that happens is because your boxes are already full. So the thing that then spills out of the box that doesn't have a space, you then put in the first box. But what you've almost got is this thing where one of them's always dropping off, and then you have to pick that up and take it back. So, right, okay, I need to get a screwdriver, I need to get an empty bottle, and I need to, what's the other thing? What's the other thing? Was it sellotape? No, it wasn't sellotape. It was something like that. What was it? Now, at that point, your working memory is trying to find out how to get yourself back round again to fill those spaces. And it can be very, very stressful. And it also is how we get overwhelmed. Now, specifically, we can actually talk about how many spaces it has, because this has actually been shown. So psychologists and neuroscientists have shown us how much space our working memory has. And our working memory has between 5 and 9 spaces. Now, that 5 and 9 is not like you have 5, he has 6, she has 8. It doesn't work like that. In certain spaces, you'll have 5. So in certain contexts, like you might have 5 when you're learning maths, but when you're learning something else, you might have more. So it kind of fluctuates. So we can't just say, oh, well, I'm a 7-space working memory person. Yeah, that's how it works. And it doesn't work like that. It's always changing, because if it was just the same all the time, then we'd know how to work ourselves. But your brain's not as happy as that. The more stressed you are, the less spaces you have. So as you get more anxious, this might even drop down to 3 or 4 spaces, because the other ones are all filled with anxiety thoughts and things that you're running through your head. I hope I don't mess this up. Oh my God, people don't like me, or am I good enough, or whatever it is taking up part of your working memory. So the more anxious you are, or if you've got a mental health challenge going on, that could be reducing your working memory as well, which then can make people go, oh, well, I must be stupid because I can't remember that, when actually it's not. It's actually part of the mental health problem. And if we get into that and made you breathe and become zen, then all of a sudden you have all this space. So what happens, therefore, is that in life, things come at us and we end up in this place when our working memory is full, and we call that overwhelm. Now, one of the places that most commonly, and how that most commonly happens, is because of what I call stuff and things. Now, can I just say, I found out recently that stuff and things is a meme, I think from Parks and Rec. And I loved Parks and Rec and never even realised that it was a meme. It might be from Community or something like that. I don't know what it is. I didn't mean it in that sense. What I mean by stuff and things is literally stuff and things. And this is about how we speak. Because how many of you have gone away at night or something like that? Go away from college and somebody says, what have you got on tonight? And you go, I've just got some stuff to do for psychology, for instance, if you did a psychology module. I've got some stuff to do for psychology, and I've got some things that my mum's telling me to do, for example, or I've got some things that my boyfriend's told me to do, or my girlfriend's told me to do, or whoever it is in your life. Now, you just throw that out there. I've got some stuff to do for psychology, and I've got things to do that somebody else has asked me to do. But there is a very good chance that stuff and things is a little bit bigger than that. You threw it out there, and inside your head, what it does is it just takes up that one little space inside your head. But when I open that box, I find that it's absolutely packed full of loads of stuff. So you sit down and you go, well, I've got this stuff to do and I've got these things to do. So I should have loads of time tonight. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to watch that thing that you told me to watch on Netflix. And I'm going to watch some. In fact, if you've got Apple TV, then I highly recommend Ted Lasso. I'm going to watch Ted Lasso because it's amazing, and Brian told me to watch it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for a run, and then I'll walk the dog. You go home, you start doing your homework or whatever work it is you have to do for college, and before you know where the hell you are, it's 9:30. And you've not done the things that you needed to do. You've definitely not watched Ted Lasso, and your run has disappeared into somewhere else. And you're like, how the bloody hell did that happen? And it happened because you weren't actually paying attention to the stuff and things that are so important to your life. And therefore, what you start feeling is overwhelmed, because you're like, but I've got so much to do and I've not got enough time. And the reason that you don't have enough time is because you're just adding more and more stuff and things into stuff and things where there's no space, because you think there's space, but there's no space. You're already overwhelmed and you keep on adding it in because you go, oh, no, I've just got some stuff to do for that. And, oh, yeah, I want to go on a run, which is this. And I want to do this. But even if you think about just going on a run, think about going on a run. Now, I know that it's easy, and I know that Jason's listening to this and he's like a running machine and all of that. But even he will accept, especially since he goes running with his dogs, that there is, So I go for a run. So what do I need to do to go for my run? Where's my stuff? Now, maybe you're super organized and you know where all your stuff is, and that's great. But where is all that? If you go running with your dog, like, where's the lead? Where's this? Where am I going to go? Do I know my route? Do I have to drive to my route to be able to get there? Or is it somewhere where I can just leave the house and start running? Is that something I can do? Then what I have to do once I find my stuff, because then I have to take all my my daytime clothes off to then put all my running gear on. But that takes time, that's like, and now, right, okay, now do I have where's my headphones? I don't know, where did I leave them? Jesus, they're not charged. Right, do you have headphones? Can I use your headphones? Why are you using my headphones and not because my headphones ran out of charge. I forgot to put them on charge. Well, make sure you put them back. I know I will. I promise I will. They're connected to your phone. Can you disconnect your Bluetooth? Because they're on your phone. No, I can hear your Instagram. It's on your phone. Could you switch your Bluetooth off and then I'll connect to them? Right, okay, that's me on them now. I've got my music's playing. Thank you. Right, brilliant. Oh, Strava. Right, crap. Oh, my watch. Hang on, I have to get it recorded on my watch. And I have to do that. Oh, my warm-up. I've not even warmed up yet. Right, hang on. I better do 5 minutes of warm-up before I go. And this is before I've even left to go on my run. But in my head, it just takes up this one tiny little space where I go, I'm going for a run. And what we don't realise is all of the bits that go into that. And when that happens, it's very, very easy to lose your priorities. So everything becomes equally as important when actually it's not. It's equally not important at all. There is just that one thing that's important. And when we start to get things into priorities, when we start to go, well, my psychology homework's actually not due for another 2 weeks, so I don't need to do that yet. But that thing that person asked me to do is, or if I go on a run, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, that's going to really, really help me. Do you get my drift? Here's how you combat that. This type of overwhelm, this type of burnout by overwhelm is so common. You'll know it because your head is busy all the time. You might feel really anxious. You might feel like you've got like just stuff coming at you like all the time. And you're just like, you're like, I can't cope. There's just stuff like all around me. I can't think straight. My memory doesn't work. I'm forgetting things. This is burnout by overwhelm. What I'm going to ask you to do though, is I'm going to ask you to stop. So how do we combat this? Well, what we have to do is we have to slow down a bit. That's number one. Take a breath. And let me tell you just a very brief little story. Jason will more than likely, I don't know what Jason's feelings are and what I'm about to talk about, but he will recognise what I'm about to talk about. I remember when I first started like doing training and all that kind of stuff and working on my fitness. And loads of people said, like, can you do me a food planner and all this type of stuff and all that type. I always remember about 2 or 3 years ago, I went to my first personal trainer who ever was really, really rigid on the fact that I used MyFitnessPal, the app on your phone or whatever it is for you. And he wanted me to scan everything in and he wanted me just to check. He's like, it gets me an idea of where you are and it gives you an idea of where you are. And I was like, mate, my diet's pretty good. We cook all the time. We cook fresh food. So I think I'm all right. And, I have porridge in the morning. I do everything that all the personal trainers I've had before have always told me how to do. And basically that was all good. So what happens is that I go off and I go, right, that's fine. I'll show him with my MyFitnessPal. So there's two things that I'll tell you about, right? The first one is my porridge in the morning. So he told me, buy a wee set of digital scales. He's like, this is what I want you to do. Like, do your normal amount. He's like, just do whatever your normal amount is. And then what I want you to do is weigh that normal amount and tell me how heavy it is. Now, I think on the box, right? No, you don't have to stick to what the box says. But I think on the box, a sort of generally sort of healthy portion of porridge is between about 40 and 50 grams, depending on what it is you're doing. But it was for me. And I'm like, well, that must be about like 45 grams or something. Weighed it, and it was just over 80 grams. I still remember going, geez, I was having this double portion every single morning and wondering why about 11:15, 11 o'clock every morning, I was getting this kind of real sort of drowsy kind of crash sort of thing. And it was probably because I was stuffed. It was absolutely like I'd eaten a double breakfast, before I'd even started in the morning. And the other one was, and apologies to, I don't know why I'm apologising. You know that there's meat eaters in the world, but I'm a bit of I'm trying my best and definitely balancing it off. But it's still one of my favourite dinners is steak and chips. And I always remember I made myself steak and chips at the weekend. It was a weekend treat, you know. I've been so good, you know, all that kind of stuff all the week. And, you know, I'm still very healthy and I still eat good portions and all that type of stuff. And I remember, like, on my fitness pal, because I'd done this a couple of times, and he said to me, have you weighed your dinner? And I'm like, weighing my dinner? I'm like, geez, I'm like, I don't even know, like, what that is. You know, I don't know what weighing my dinner actually even is. And but I said, right, okay, I'll do that. And so what happened was I took it off. I was putting into my fitness pal that I was having 150 grams of chips with my steak whenever I had one. So I serve it up. I put my normal amount on the plate. I'm like, that looks like an okay. I think I was being careful. I was like, that looks like an okay portion. I take them off and I weigh them and I'm having 450 grams of chips. So I'm having a triple serving. I'm almost having half a kilo of chips. And in my head, I'm looking at it going, that's a small portion. Why am I telling you this ridiculous story? Because this is how we be overwhelmed. What you have to do is you have to start tracking. Not your food, obviously, because that's not going to make any difference to your overwhelm. But what you need to start tracking is you need to start tracking whether or not and how long things are taking. How do you know how long that homework will take? And you need to be honest. And when you start being honest with yourself about, I know that's going to take me 2 hours. I know that by the time I get changed, go for my run, get home, have a shower, and I'm settled enough to work, that is an hour and a half, for instance, out of my evening. Now, if I got home at 5 o'clock and by the time I get in, say hello to the dog, let the dog out for a pee, get changed, go out for a run. I'm not going out until about 5:30. That means by the time I'm really settled, it's just after 7. I still then have my homework. Now, that sounds overwhelming. But actually what it does is it starts you being able to say no. It starts you being able to push back. It starts even on yourself to start being able to turn around and say, no, I can't do that, or I'm not able to do this today, or this bit of life here is going to have to wait. And this is where the priorities start coming in. You cannot prioritize when you don't know what's happening. This I'm spending most time on because this is the most common type of burnout that we experience. And what I want you to do is you need to stop and you need to take the effort to start tracking and being honest with yourself. You don't have to write it down, but that can really help. There's also apps online that you can get where you can actually like plan these things if you wanted to go to that level. But what you're really looking at is you're trying to look at where does my time go? And what, therefore, do I need to do now? What do I need to do later? And when do I need to do this bit, and this bit? And when do they all fit in? So this is what I want you to be doing as we go forward into whatever it is that as you start tracking. So I must apologise. I was slightly distracted there. My wife's just appeared in the office. This is genuine, right? Can I just say? So I'm going to mark it. Jason and I said, well, we'll talk about this, but we don't know whether we will. So just before we came live, I went to go and fill my tea up, like here. We've only just moved into this office in the last couple of weeks. And I am currently locked in my office. We can't get the door open. And so if you hear a big bang in the background, it is my wife managing to open the door to actually let me out of this room. I promise I'm not going to run away right in the middle of the thing, but I'm genuinely, this room that I'm in at the moment, I am genuinely locked in it. And my wife is here that once we finish this, to give the door an absolute smack. In fact, you can probably hear it in the background, the clatter that she's giving it. Anyway, so I'm just going to keep going. So this is burnout by overwhelm. Okay, now what we have is we have the second type of burnout, and this is burnout by boredom. Now, this is something that many of you will have experienced during lockdown, because you had maybe nothing to do. School, if you were at school, was maybe not there. College wasn't the same. There was big gaps between things. So there's these huge, great big gaps where nothing happened. You weren't being able to see your friends. You weren't being able to interact with all of your family. Maybe if you're single, you weren't allowed to date in the same way that you maybe were before. You know, your Tinder profile was growing cobwebs. You weren't able to do all these things. And therefore, what happens is that we realize that doing nothing is tiring. I worked in pubs. I worked in hospitality for a number of years. And I remember one particular job where I worked in a pub for quite a long time. And it was dead. And it was one of the most difficult jobs that I ever had to do, because just sitting there all day with like 3 customers, when you start at like 9:30 and you leave at 6:30 and you've seen like 3 people all day, you just sit there, nobody to talk to, nothing to do. You've cleaned the shelves, you've tried to keep yourself busy, but ultimately what happens is that goes, and ultimately that pub shut, not number one because it was quiet, but interestingly, the quieter it got, it was like everything went down. It was like when the customer came in, it wasn't like we were, yeah, a customer, this is brilliant. It wasn't like that. It was more a customer's come in, oh, Jesus. Like, oh no, I have to serve them. And this is burnout by boredom. So what happens is that for us all, is that we end up in this place where it's very easy to end up in a place where we are just experiencing inertia. Now, inertia is a big word. It's actually not, it's only 7 letters, but you get what I mean. So inertia, I'm going to try and explain it. If any of you do engineering or physics or anything like that, whether it's school or at college, I'm going to apologize. This is my description of inertia, right? So imagine that we're sitting on a bus, right? Okay. And we've got a helium balloon, right? So we've got a helium balloon and we put it in the middle of the bus. We're on a single decker, if it helps. Not that it would make any difference to physics. Physics doesn't change in a double decker. And if we put the balloon in and it sits there like this, there's no draft, so it just sits straight up, the balloon floats on its string, everything's brilliant. Now, when we start that bus, what it will look like is if the balloon has gone backwards. And we'll go, oh, look, the balloon's going backwards. But the balloon's not going backwards at all. What the balloon is doing is staying exactly where it was, going, where are you all going? And the bus is moving around the balloon, because what the balloon wants to do is the balloon wants to stay where it was. The balloon is quite happy where it was. It was quite happy to sit there. Now, eventually, as we drive, the string goes tight. And when the string goes tight, what happens is the balloon starts to get dragged along with the bus. Now, if we could, now this is now momentum being added in. And now it's moving, but it's being dragged. It's like the balloon's like, oh, where are you going? Now, if we keep up a constant speed, eventually what will happen is the balloon will very slowly come up, and again, it will stand up straight because it's moving at the same speed as the bus. And it will stand up straight. Now, if we stop the bus, we'll go, oh, look, the balloon's now going forwards. But the balloon's not going forwards at all. The balloon's going, I'm going this way. And all of a sudden, what happens is the balloon just continues to move, even though the bus is slowed down. So actually, the bus is stopping and the balloon's keeping going. Obviously, what then happens is the string goes tight and the balloon gets pulled back, and the bus stops, the balloon stops, and we're back to normal. This is what happened to so many of us during lockdown. This is what happened to many of us, is that actually we got so used to sitting and doing nothing and staring at these screens that this just became the thing that we did. And even then, we probably even switched our cameras off. I'm scared to do that in case I can't get it back on again. You know, we switched our cameras off and we just sat there. No, in fact, we maybe even muted ourselves. So we just sat there going, yeah, I know. While a lecture was going on. Of course, none of you did that, because at Dundee and Angus College, of course, you all paid full attention. But, you know, like, and you're, yeah, I know. No, I'm on a lecture. No, it's boring. Sure crap. He's all right. Like, I don't mind the guy, but yeah. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know. I've actually been sitting on my phone for the last 10 minutes, so I don't know. Yeah, I better get back to it. And what happens is we end up in this place where we're just like the balloon. We just want to stay where we are. And then when the world opens up and college starts back and all these things start back again, what happens is that we have to get pulled along. But what lots of people do when they're having this type of burnout, and therefore it can frustrate them because they're like, I've just got no motivation, is they go too fast, too hard, and too big. So they just go too big, too hard, too fast. That's better order. So too big, too hard, too fast. So what you do is you've been sitting like this for a year and a half, and then all of a sudden you go, I'm going this way really fast, and I'm going to go and get an HND. Now, for some people that works. That's brilliant. They can boom, and all of a sudden the momentum's there. They get some energy, and they're like, I've been waiting for this. This is fantastic. But if you've had burnout by boredom, what happens is you can end up in this place where you're completely and utterly static. And the energy that you need to be able to put into that system, to be able to make it move, is huge. How do you do it? So if you've got this, what do we do? Well, what we do is is that we do baby steps. So what we're doing is we're doing baby steps, one step at a time, where we're not going too big, too hard, too fast. So what you're doing is you're potentially biting off more than you can chew. You're trying to go at 70 miles an hour when you've been stopped for ages. So what I would suggest is that you have a look at what you're doing. If you recognize yourself in this one, is that you look at what you're doing and you take it one little step at a time. It's like taking off baby chunks. What is the thing that I can do that just gets me moving? Just maybe going back into college, like 1 or 2 days, attending your classes, whatever it is, making sure that you're paying attention, just little things. Get that one piece of homework in, whatever it is. And as you start doing that, what your system will do is it will just be like the balloon. It will start to speed up and it'll go, oh, I remember this. I remember what this feels like. And it starts to get that momentum. And once you get momentum, the easier it gets. And I promise that if you start with baby steps, I know you're like, yeah, but I want to be back here. I used to go to the gym 4 times a week and I was doing this and I had ambition and I was going to do this, and this. But what happens is that if you go for that, you're just going to end up feeling crap about yourself. What we need to do is we need to build it up over time. So burnout by boredom, what we do is we take it baby steps, one step at a time. And if you need help with that, people like the student wellbeing team will be able to point you and signpost you to people who can maybe sit and go, right, let's have a look at it. Let's have a look at how we get you moving again. You have to appreciate that doing nothing is tiring. No matter the fact that people around you go, but you've just been sitting in your arse for the last however long. That causes you to become stuck. And what needs to happen is the energy needs to go into the system to get you unstuck. Last one. And then we'll get Jason back on and we'll do a Q&A so that I can get out of this office and my wife can try and break down my door. So the last one is burnout by neglect. Now, what we mean by burnout by neglect is that what people do is they get so focused on what they're doing that they stop looking after themselves. Now, it's kind of tied into the burnout by overwhelm, but actually it's primarily about self-care. You might not actually be that busy. You might be doing a lot of stuff, but what's happened is it's like the blinkers come on and all of a sudden you're neglecting yourself, hence the reason why it's called burnout by neglect. So you stop looking after yourself. You stop going for the run because you're so busy with college. So these first one, number 1 and number 3 are quite closely tied quite often. You can actually have both of these going on. So what happens is all of a sudden college is so busy and you're so overwhelmed that all of a sudden you don't go on a run or you don't do the thing that you need to do, whatever it is. You don't take the time out. You don't chill out. You don't watch the Netflix thing. All of these different things that we can do. Sorry, I was reading a wee message that Jason had sent, but I didn't realize he'd sent it ages ago. It was about the slides. So this idea of burnout by neglect is about you realizing that the most important thing in you being able to succeed in anything is not homework, is not your ability to listen to the lecture, although that is also very important. But if you're neglecting yourself, if you don't feel good in yourself, how are you going to be able to do anything with all the stuff that you learn? You could be the most academically gifted, amazing student that Dundee and Angus College have ever seen. But if you have really low self-esteem and you don't take care of yourself, so you're maybe unfit, your eating habits are crap, you're staying up till 4:30 in the morning, you're tired, you're cranky, you live on caffeine, all of these different things, whatever it is for you. I've just used one example there, but there's many examples. You're in crap relationships, your friendships are rubbish, all of these different things, and you're not looking after you, you're not putting yourself first. All of that academia, all of that intelligence you have, all of that academic ability is really worthless if actually at the end of it, you're not happy. And this is a huge mental health message in terms of that type of burnout. For many people, the one thing that they never think of when they feel burnt out is to stop and look after themselves. They just keep on going. They're like an engine with no fuel. I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot give what you do not have. So if you're trying to give something energy, as in you try to give your college work energy, you try to give your friends energy, your partner energy, your kids energy, your whatever it is, if you try to give that energy, if you don't have that energy first, you're running on empty. And that is a really dangerous place to be. No wonder you're knackered. There has to be an element where you realize that the world is not going to look after you. You have to look after yourself. But when you do it, not always at first, because at first, remember that normal that we talked about earlier, that routine, it can be a change. Remember I said it kind of gets pushed to the background. So you have to change that normal. And sometimes that old normal is like, yeah, but it was so much more fun just to eat chocolate, drink Red Bull, and stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning playing Call of Duty. Yeah, that was fun, but it wasn't good for you. All it was total drugs. It was just a numbing agent. That's all it did. You weren't looking after yourself. In fact, what you try to do is switch yourself off. By the way, nothing against Call of Duty, play it, but you know what I mean. You get them adrift. There's times and places and ways to make it happen. So, Jason, 2 minutes and we'll be ringing you back in. Let me just recap on our 3 types of burnout. Number 1, burnout by overwhelm. Too much stuff, too many boxes full with stuff that you don't even realize when you start to unpack it is huge. So therefore, this stuff that you have to start tracking it. You have to know what it is. Start writing it down, taking notes. You don't just have to start planning, but you have to be honest with yourself about how much you're doing so that you can start to prioritize what's important. Writing it down and creating a list or a mind map, which I would have shown you if I got the slides working, is a very, very useful way to do it. Burnout by boredom, where we have to start taking baby steps to start getting the action back in, to get the energy back into a system that's basically sat like this during the pandemic and being bored and static. And then burnout by neglect, where actually the last place that we look is the first place we need to go, which is looking at ourselves and realizing that we need to look after ourselves, to do self-care before we can actually start to give the energy to be able to do everything that we want to do. I hope that you've recognized yourself in some of this. I would normally at this point be showing a slide with my socials and all that kind of stuff on it. But ultimately, if you Instagram Headstrong Minds, Facebook, we're Headstrong Minds, we're headstrongminds.com. So if you search for Headstrong Minds, wherever it is, we've got a wee butterfly icon. You'll be able to find us on Insta, all of these different places. And you can go and say hello to us. We'd love to hear from you. If we can give you any other advice, well, Jason is currently putting it into the chat as well if you want. But I'll share those slides with Jason. So if you're interested, give the wellbeing team a shout and they will come back to you and do what needs to be done and get them to you. But Jason, I don't know if you've got any wee questions you want to ask. I've got kind of 5 minutes before my wife wants to break my door down.
I honestly, man, that's so funny. Like we're laughing at it in the
background. Could you hear the boom?
Yeah, like she was beating the door down. Yeah.
I still didn't budge, by the way. I could be here all night. I'm on the 5th floor. I could be Spider-Man in it down the outside of the building soon.
It was so funny. I wasn't sure if you bring it up or not, but I was going to bring it up anyway because I think it's brilliant to see like you go through a whole thing like that and not even be flustered. It was like, yeah, I'm walking in the room, can't get my slides to work, but hey, we're cracking on, and it was brilliant. Really insightful, actually. Yeah, I had a couple of things for you. So, brilliant example about the running, by the way, because if I could just give you an example of that, this morning I went out for a run with my dog, and that is literally what it's like. However, I've managed to build in some sort of mechanism to make it easier. So, always lay my running gear out the night before. Always lay the dog's harness out, the lead, blah, blah, blah. Everything's kind of in its place. I know it's in the car. I know my running shoes are in the car. I know my shorts are at the end of the bed. It's all has to be a system. And I know how much time that now takes. If I go for a 5K, it's going to take me somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. And the same again to get my kit off, get ready. So yeah, it's not. If I get
the dog cleaned, get what I mean, that's it. And it's even that normal that you have, that routine you have. You know, that's that one of those normals. Yes, of leaving everything out, so it's easy. My wife used to do that when she was doing strength training. She used to, before she went to bed at night, like leave her weights out, leave her stuff out. So it was literally get out of bed, and it was all set up, because if she had to set it up, it was enough to put her off from doing it.
Exactly, and that's exactly it. And it's a time as well, because I know if I don't get out the door before 7 o'clock for a run, I ain't making it to work for 9 o'clock. That's what I've now figured out. So there's no point even trying, because it's not going to happen. Now that sounds a bit mad, doesn't it? I'm going for a 5K run. Yeah, I need all that time. But you nailed it when you were talking about it. The other thing that really made me laugh as well is your Fitness Pal experience.
It flags up. I don't think it's there just now, but it flags up every day now going, you've not logged your breakfast. I don't really use it anymore, but
yeah, I'm the same. So I sort of cycle it. So I'll go into like periods where I will use it, where I feel I just need to get back on track or whatever. But it is honestly hilarious. If anybody's not tried it, you will get a shock. Like you will get a shock.
Oh my god! No wonder.
Half a kilo of chips, man. That's brilliant.
Half a kilo of chips. That puts it into context when you say it that way, you know, because you just pour the bag out on the tray. You don't really pay attention, you know. It's just there, you know. So
And I think being really honest, if everybody's looking at that, they probably could identify some of the signs out of the three of those types. And I think my question to you, Brian, is if someone's sat there just now going, yeah, I identify with one of them, two of them, or all three of them, should, it's solvable. You've given solutions on each one there as well. It's a case of just kind of slowing down, realizing how much stuff you do have going on. And that's the first one, wasn't it? By overwhelm. And then finding ways of like looking after yourself in that time when you maybe feel you should be doing something else. So, prime example, I'll give you an example of that right now, is earlier on today, I got a message this afternoon from a lad saying there's a boxing sparring session on tonight, 8:00. And I'm like, oh, I was just planning on going home and having my dinner at 8:00. Now, could I squeeze that in? But actually, now I'm thinking no, because, okay, it'll be 45 minutes. It's in Dundee. I'll not get home till the back of 9. I'll then probably not want my dinner till closer to 10. I'm working. I've got first client at 8:00 tomorrow morning, which means I need to work out at 6. How's that going to work?
And all of a sudden, even you saying that, I can feel that kind of pressure, already coming on. It's like, you can just feel it, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's by prioritizing that and knowing that, you then go, no, hang on a minute, that doesn't fit.
I don't need it. It does the other thing as well. So you think about it, you think, do I really need to be doing that? Is that going to take off tomorrow? Am I going to be a bit depleted for tomorrow as a result of tonight? And I think I've started thinking about that. And that's what went into your, your Call of Duty example almost as well. It's all great at the time, the energy drink, the playing computer, but you're taking off tomorrow effectively. That's the way I kind of think about it.
Or especially with the energy drinks, isn't it? You're actually just building up that you're going to need an energy drink tomorrow to cope with the energy drink that you had today, and that's probably, you and I could probably do a whole soapbox moment about, Red Bull and Monster and all those different things. But, and it is, I think this is where the self-care comes in. And as I said right at the beginning, nobody can do it for you. Mm-hmm. You have to do it yourself. And I know that's a tough message if you're already feeling burnt out, when me and Jason are saying, you have to do it. But again, that comes back to that inertia thing. It's just about baby steps. We're not asking you to go too big, too fast, too hard. You don't have to go right to the end. It's just about starting putting one foot in front of the other. So if you go to bed at 4:00 in the morning, and I know you go, oh no, I can't go to bed at 3 or 2 because I wouldn't be able to sleep. Well, you wouldn't, because that's not your normal. You have to give that time to be able to train your system and to being back into being a system that can go to bed at 2:00. And that might take 2 weeks, it might take a month. The question is if you hate going to bed at 4:00, then you have to stop going to bed at 4:00 in the morning. If you're knackered, you just have to stop it and change it, and your mind will catch up and you'll train yourself into being able to do it. Again, making sure that you're paying attention. This could be a future session. I do a thing about, 5 ways to improve your mental health. And one of them is about sleep and understanding, prepping for sleep, understanding how important that is, so what am I drinking? What am I eating? A couple of hours beforehand. What am I watching, or what am I doing? Beforehand. Yeah. I used to play COD all the time, and all of a sudden, and genuinely, I noticed that it was starting to disturb my sleep, because I was switching it off and going to bed, and I'm like, I've been online. It's been really hectic. I'm pretty crap at the game, so it's like really intense, and then I switch it off and think I can straight go to sleep. That's just not how a body works. So it's about care.
Yeah, it's like, if someone's scrolling on their phone, similar thing through Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, whatever, you're not actually in control of what you're being fed. So you're just taking
a whole workshop.
We're probably going into territory where we're tearing up new workshops. But I think the point is here, guys, is what I've certainly taken out of that, just listening in the background there, was I see a gap and I try to fill it with stuff. And actually, that gap's there for a reason, because I need that time for my self-care to be better at my other stuff that I do have, instead of, and that's it. No, Brian, absolutely, thank you so much. I really hope you get out of your office.
Otherwise, I'm sleeping here. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to get this door either off its hinges. We might have to break it in, but my wife's quite strong, so I think once you can give it a full belt, as soon as I'm off this call, I'm pretty sure it's going to pop in. But there's somebody in the building. There's like a guy who's about as tall as me, who's like the security guy for the building. So if it comes to it, we'll go down and get him. and get him to give it a batter and see what he can do.
It's
We
just a
will
great
get
story.
out in the office.
It's certainly a memorable story anyway. Brian,
Exactly.
thank you so much. Like I said, Brian does various things with us at the college, or Mark, usually Brian or Mark. So yeah, some of those workshops we're talking about sound really good, and I'm quite sure you'll be back on our screens very soon again. I'm quite sure.
Magic, mate. Well, thank you very much for the invite. I'll drop you a text and let you know when I'm out.
Absolutely, please do, because we'll all be worried about you. So I'm going to have to put some on Facebook and let them know that you've got out. And again, once we get those the handouts through as well, if anybody requests them, we'll certainly pass them through as well and have those on display. What's that saying, Gavin? We'll get this.
You don't see the rescue live on Facebook.
That's Carol in the background as well. So yeah, that would be great.
We should tape it. In fact, I'm going to set my phone up to video this. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to point it at the door. That's what I'm going to do. Excellent. Thank you.
We'll look forward to it, Brian. Take care. Thanks so much. Cheers.
Okay, mate. See you soon. Thank you.
Bye.